Tuesday, December 12th. Welcome to the program. Thanks for being with us. Got some guys in the chat already. That's awesome. Welcome to the show. Whether you're streaming on Facebook or YouTube, leave a comment below. Remember to hit that like button, share it around, encourage your hockey fan friends to subscribe and follow, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube. And of course, check out hockeytalkshow.com, because that's where the Hockey Talk Show lives on the worldwide internets. And we've got links there to all our podcast information and, of course, the live streaming video, which if you guys are watching right now, thanks for doing that. If you're watching later, we're going to put links to some things that we have going on, some past shows that we reference specifically, as you can tell by the title of tonight's show, the Erik Karlsson issue. And off the top, that is the big news. Erik Karlsson has submitted a 10-team no-trade list to the Ottawa Senators. It is not that simple. It is quite involved, and we will delve into it completely on this episode of the Hockey Talk Show. He does have a limited no-trade clause, and as part of that has to submit a list of teams, but it gets a little murky and a little complicated in between. So we'll be sure to get into that issue here off the top of the program. Also want to talk about the Winter Classic, Rangers and Sabres from Citi Field right here in New York City. It's just down the road that way. I mean, like an hour down the road that way, but still down the road that way from where the Hockey Talk Show originates from. So it's exciting around here in New York. I've noticed a couple of people in my travels the last couple of days, been out doing the shopping thing with the family and seeing some people around. Was in Dick's Sporting Goods, was in Modell's, and noticed the New York Rangers Winter Classic gear on display. In fact, we have links. I think we still have links down below for the Winter Classic gear. If you guys want to check that out, you can do so by clicking those links below. There's excitement about that. And I've got some news about the Winter Classic. I think if you're a Sabres fan, especially a Rangers fan, and I know we have a lot of Rangers fans subscribed to the Hockey Talk Show, you will like what I have to say tonight about the Winter Classic. So we'll talk about that. Speaking about Dick's Sporting Goods and Modell's and all that stuff, shop.nhl.com is an affiliate of the Hockey Talk Show. We have a 30% off deal. If you click the link below, you can save 30% on some hockey gear this holiday season. So go ahead and click that link and enjoy. If you're on the podcast, just go ahead on over and go to the hockeytalkshow.com, and you could follow the links from the main page there or through the Facebook and YouTube channels. And we got some other little things to clean up and get into while we're at it. So let's start getting into that stuff. Let's talk about MarcAndre Fleury and the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're going to get some goaltenders back in the mix, and that starts with number 29 for the Vegas Golden Knights. He has been activated off IR. We talked about that the other day on the Hockey Talk Show. And what's interesting is, and I believe, as far as we know, everything expected, he will be in the lineup tonight for the Vegas Golden Knights, and he will be starting. It's Carolina in Vegas tonight, but what's super interesting is Matt Murray was just activated off of IR. I believe he missed five games or 5 days with Pittsburgh with a lower body injury, and he could be back in the lineup for the next Pittsburgh game, which just so happens to be against the Vegas Golden Knights on Thursday. So some interesting things there for Gerard Gallant to consider. Do you start MarcAndre Fleury tonight and on Thursday, or do you save him one more game and start him on Thursday? Now, by all accounts, it was expected that MarcAndre Fleury would start tonight. We didn't get the absolute definite just yet, but from what I understand, that is expected has turned into as close of a definite as we are going to get. So it looks like it'll be MarcAndre Fleury tonight. Will they play him in back-to-back games right away coming off the concussion? We'll have to wait and see. By the way, Vegas Golden Knights, with the game tonight, it is their third chance to go on a 5-game winning streak in this early 2017 season. Again, people are still, I don't know about Vegas and maybe some trades and blah, 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 this and blah, 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 that. Third chance to go. I can't do 5. I'll drop my Apple Pencil. It's expensive. 5-game winning streak for the Vegas Golden Knights. Their third opportunity to go on this run in this early 2017 season. That, my friends, is an incredibly good team. And by the way, an incredibly good team without their face of the franchise, MarcAndre Fleury. The fact that we're still doubting the Vegas Golden Knights, to me, is so beyond belief. Corey, talk about Seattle. We are waiting. I don't think we're going to talk about Seattle in this show. It was a very hot topic for a while there last week. I know we had like 3 shows that really delved deep into Seattle. Well, expansion's a big story. On top of that, it really kind of sent our numbers like through the roof. So I made sure to keep Seattle and expansion high up on the list of show topics. But we're not going to talk about Seattle tonight. I don't think, at least. We're going to talk about the Ottawa Senators and Erik Karlsson. And you know what? Even if you're not a Sens fan, you got to get excited, because if you're a Rangers fan, if you're a Canadiens fan, I mean, if you're an Arizona Coyotes fan, and I get that you don't want to admit it in public here to us on the Hockey Talk Show, get excited. Maybe Arizona doesn't have a chance at him, but because Erik Karlsson could be coming to a franchise near you real soon. So to just wipe up the goalie stuff quickly, Matt Murray activated off of IR. He'll come back and play for sure on Thursday. Will MarcAndre Fleury get into the lineup? That we're going to have to wait and see if that's going to go down. Of course, we'll keep you updated here on the Hockey Talk Show. Quickly, I do want to update you on, speaking of, we're going to talk about the Winter Classic for sure, but we do have to talk about the NHL 100 Classic thingamajig that they're doing. While we're getting into the Ottawa Senators here, that's certainly a big deal to talk about. And they've got the stadium up and running. Huge snowfall on the East Coast over the weekend, and they think that is not going to delay the building of that rink whatsoever. You can see there. Look, that's a beautiful scene. I mean, outdoor hockey is exciting, isn't it, though? It's exciting no matter what. I'm loving all the activity on YouTube tonight, guys. Thanks for tuning in over there. Hopefully you guys over on Facebook are enjoying as well. So that outdoor game, the NHL 100 game, looks like it's going to be good to go there with the Ottawa Senators. Now, the question is will Erik Karlsson be in a Senators uniform by the time that rolls around? That we're going to have to wait and see. That we're going to have to go ahead and do our due diligence on and just check on. So a couple things with this Erik Karlsson issue right off the top. His comments a couple of weeks ago didn't help. And what I find pretty funny about that is most of those comments that he had a couple of weeks ago was driven by Drew Doughty. That was what was really hysterical for me. Like, Drew Doughty was out there all talking smack, like, I'm getting what I'm going to get. I'm leaving if I have to leave to do it. But Erik Karlsson didn't say all that much. I mean, I don't think he disagreed with Drew Doughty, but he wasn't really the driving force. I feel like the driving force behind all this was Drew Doughty, because he did the interview and then he never backed off of any of those comments, and those things went viral. And the fact that Drew Doughty said, I'm going to phone up my buddy Erik Karlsson and we're going to make sure that we get more than PK Subban, essentially. I mean, I'm joshing here a little bit, but that's essentially what he said. Really caused a problem with the Ottawa Senators. Now, I'm going to read for you something that I came across in the NBC coverage, NBC on NHL. Obviously, NBC, the broadcast partner of the National Hockey League, so they have some responsibilities as far as reporting on the league goes. And then I'm going to read some other little tidbits and things that I got from other sources around the league that makes it seem a little bit worse, which indeed it is. Will we know the teams that are on Erik Karlsson's list? I'm going to address that, and I'm going to get into that. In the NBC article, Erik Karlsson said, this was just a few moments ago today, actually about 3 hours ago, that this was purely part of his contract. Now, all right, let me get into it. when a player signs a contract, there are certain things that are involved with that, especially if there's a no trade clause in there. And in some cases, you know, that list has to be submitted at the time the contract is signed, or before the season starts, or before the trade deadline. Like, it could be spelled out in the contract, you know, or it could not be spelled out in a contract, which I don't know what we have here. We have a he said, you know, player said, franchise said. It's not exactly a he said, she said. It's a player said, franchise said sort of a thing. So Erik Karlsson came out and said, quote, "That's one of the things that's in my contract, and it's just a formality, and it's business. I don't read too much into it." This is what he told the Ottawa Sun today. But from what I understand, and especially from other people, and that's what's really important about this, which really kind of lends to my opinion on this, which I will get to and conclude with. The Ottawa Senators asked him to submit the list. Now, that's pretty important, and I'll tell you why. And again, you know, I worked for the New York Islanders for a time. I interned for them. I was hired by them. Early on, especially during my interning days, I did a lot of work with the lawyer for the New York Islanders, and I learned a whole hell of a lot about contracts. I actually learned a whole hell of a lot about insurance, which was not fun whatsoever. I remember the first big thing that I worked on as an intern for the Islanders was when Michael Pekka came down. It was that big grab in 01 when Pekka and Yashin came to the island. When Michael Pekka came down, there was a knee injury that he had while he was up with Buffalo. And now that he was employed with the Islanders, and there was still some treatment or doctor bills or something, and there was some issue. And I'm not going to blow up the guy's personal stuff or anything, but there was an issue that happened in Buffalo, and he came down here, and there was literally litigation between the Sabres and the Islanders over who is footing the insurance bill for Michael Pekka. You know, he was currently employed with the New York Islanders, yet the injury happened with the Sabres. And there was literally this back and forth, and percentages had to be figured out as to who was going to be paying. I mean, and all this stuff, it was like fine tooth comb in the contract. So I did a lot of Xeroxing back then. Who the hell says Xeroxing anymore? Seriously. I'm going to take 5 host points away from myself for saying Xeroxing. Can you run off some ditto sheets on these contracts, please? But anyway, but that was the thing. So I spent a lot of time with the lawyer for the Islanders, and I did learn a bunch of cool stuff. What's really interesting to me about this is the Ottawa Senators asked. It's all about the little details. So I bring that up, and I bring the lawyer story up for the Islanders, because if this was really something that's triggered in his contract, his representatives would be well aware of this. By the way, and I forget the name, I forget who he's with, but he's with Dowdy. He's with one of the big ones, North something or other. He's with a big agency. This is their job. If they have to submit something to the team, they would have done it. They don't really need to be asked for it. You know, this would be like your boss coming to you and being like, can you submit a list of vacation days that you want? Like, no, it doesn't happen. Like, we all know what happens. Calendar flips over. We sit there and go, I am definitely taking off these days. And you fire off an email, or, you know, you submit your little vacation days. You don't need to be asked to take vacation days. How many of you that are watching or listening to this right now are sitting there going, oh no, I realized I didn't take like 10 of my vacations? Like, none of you. Like, you all make sure to get that done. This is a similar thing, only like Carlson's not sitting there dying to submit his no trade list, but there are secretaries and paralegals and interns and, you know, assistant agents and all these people that are all working on these athletes' accounts that are sitting there, that are well aware of what is in his contract and what is required of every player and every moment. If you think for a second this thing's like slipped through the cracks and, you know, the team had to ask Erik. No. The Ottawa Senators sent Erik Karlsson a message And the message was this: keep running your mouth and you'll find yourself not in an Ottawa an Ottawa Senators sweater, or a sweater if you're trying to save time. That was the message. And here's the other thing. If they weren't sending him a message, then the message was, hey, bud, we're going to start getting a price tag on you. We're going to start calling around and get a price tag on you. Then that was the message. Either way, whether it was an intentional message or not, the message being sent to Erik Karlsson is, you know, you being here for the extent of your career is not guaranteed. Is not guaranteed. Let's go on with this NBC article here. Carlson might not read much into it, but the fact that the Ottawa Senators have allowed this situation to get to this point is mind-boggling. Sure, the Swedish blue liner might not want to take a discount to stay in Ottawa, but he's arguably one of the top 3 players in the game. Are the Sens really willing to let their franchise-altering player walk away? Of course, this might be a negotiating tactic. Maybe they believe that the threat of trading him will scare him into taking less money. But that's a pretty silly way of thinking. I'm glad the article went on to say that, because that is damn silly. Let me see here. Carlson added, quote, it varies from person to person and from personality to personality. When you're in the situation we're in right now, I've been through it enough, so I've seen multiple different scenarios. I'm probably better dealing with it than some of the other guys. Are you really? Because the team is floundering and you're not scoring. So I don't know where he's reading into this whatsoever. And by the way, here's another little added bonus. Here's another little added nugget of information. The Matt Duchene trade, and it's early still, but early results, early box office, is a flop. An absolute failure flop. Now, I'm not one to evaluate a trade on, 15, 20 days or whatever it's been. But let's be honest. There's plenty of movies that tank when they have bad Friday results and never recover Saturday through Sunday. Never recover. Now, I'm not saying that the Ottawa Senators are never going to recover, but like the early numbers are in. Flop. This deal was a nightmare flop. They gave up a whole ton, and they're not winning more games than they were. They're just not. Let's take a look at Ottawa in the standings here. They're still second from the bottom. I mean, for a team with Matt Duchene and Erik Karlsson on it, they're 5 points better than the Buffalo Sabres. They haven't hit double digits in wins yet. They're 1-8-1 in their last 10. What other evidence do you want? I mean, literally the crew of the Titanic is running around, and you're going to sit there and pretend like everything is okay. The kids on the deck of the SS Ottawa Senators are kicking around ice chunks. That's the part of this movie that we're up to for the Ottawa Senators this year. This is where we are. You want to check in on the Ottawa Senators? You'll see a bunch of kids kicking around ice chunks on the top of the deck going, oh, it'll be all right. This is the unsinkable ship, right? Yeah, that's where they're at. Children are kicking away ice chunks on top of Erik Karlsson's contract right now. Talking about, I don't know, it's a formality. Come on, man. Come on. And by the way, I wouldn't put it past any team. I'm not familiar with Pierre Dorion, the new general manager for the Senators, but I wouldn't put it past any team to flex their muscle on a player like this. We've seen this a whole bunch. This happens all the time. General managers don't like players who talk and will do whatever they can to shut them up, even if it's your captain. Even if it's your captain. I'm sure Drew Doughty got a talking to. I'm sure somebody mentioned something to him. Whether it was a formal come sit in my office or if Luc Robitaille just happened to mention something on, in the elevator on the way to practice or something like that. I'm sure he heard from someone regarding what he said. I am certain of it. General managers don't like when players talk. Now, let's dig further into this. And here again is why, and you'll see this is essentially, how I began to form my opinion on whether or not Erik Karlsson will be wearing an Ottawa Senators sweater or a sweater for that much longer. As what I understand, and this has actually been reported now. I just found out that this got reported. I had heard the rumblings earlier, but apparently there was a meeting between the Senators and Erik Karlsson, which from what I understand, and from several different accounts, was either heated, tense, or awkward. Depending on where you go to find out information, heated, tense, or awkward were the words that I heard. Carlson said, quote, a lot of anger. Hang on. Sources say there was, quote, a lot of anger within the organization over Erik Karlsson's remarks, resulting in at least one tense meeting between the captain and team officials. Carlson subsequently walked back those comments, saying his quotes were taken out of context and expressing his desire to win with Ottawa. I love that. Oh, my quotes were taken out of context. Were they really? Were they really? Can you take that out of context? I'm going to get what I'm worth. I mean, it's pretty contextual when you think about it. By the way, though, and this is why, and it was great having Randy Marshall on the show yesterday, and I have no opposition to guests. We will have more on the show, but I don't want this show turning into a guest-ridden thing. Only when they can contribute something that I can't will we have a guest. For instance, Randy Marshall was in the room when they were having this meeting the other day between the Belmont, bidders, so she could add something that I couldn't. That's why we had her on. I will never. I mean, and I don't want to say never because we will have maybe a few opportunities, but for the most part, I will not bore you with players on this show. You will not really tune into this show and hear players come on this show. It will not happen. There is nothing more boring than listening to a hockey player talk. Off-season, retired players, all right. During the season, no. They are the most... I'd rather interview a rock. I'd rather interview a rock than have a player on. They're so boring. And by the way, and this is why they don't talk. Because when they do, the media takes the stuff and runs wild. The next thing you know, they're sitting in an awkward or tense meeting with management. He didn't say anything technically wrong, but he probably shouldn't have said anything. You know, he probably just shouldn't have said anything. Continuing on Erik Karlsson, let me see here. Elliot Friedman cites a source saying both sides have since taken a deep breath as the Sens know trading Karlsson out of spite would be a horrendous and soul-crushing move. Elliot Friedman says he thinks it's a long shot that Karlsson is traded, but acknowledges various factors, including other players to resign and a possible change in the club's direction could affect his future with the Ottawa Senators. Great comment, Elliot Friedman. And let your old pal Ant take it from here on why I think Erik Karlsson's days with the Ottawa Senators is drawing to a close. Because maybe the Ottawa Senators are indeed a different team. Maybe the Ottawa Senators are Matt Duchene's team now. We know that the Ottawa Senators are now Pierre Dorian's team. We know that Pierre Dorian, the second he got the job of general manager of the Ottawa Senators, the very second that he got that gig, he went out and called Joe Sakic over at the Colorado Avalanche and said to Joe, hey, if you ever think about trading Matt Duchene, I will answer. I'll also walk your dog for you. I'll also empty out your bird, like whatever. Pierre Dorian has a man crush on Matt Duchene, and now he was finally able to acquire him. And even though it hasn't really done well for him, this is clearly a direction that Pierre Dorian wants to go in, having Matt Duchene. Let's be honest. When you get in and you break down the salary cap of the Ottawa Senators, and we'll bring up capfriendly.com so we could do this with some numbers in front of us, you'll notice that the Ottawa Senators do have some cap issues. And not necessarily straight up cap issues in a sense of like, oh, they're up against the cap, which they kind of are. They have a current cap space of 2.76, but they have a deadline cap space of $8 million. So again, they're not really up against it. That has a lot to do with bonuses and all these kinds of things as far as the cap goes. But they're not a cap spending team, and they have a lot to answer for. And most notably, it's a $7.2 million contract with Bobby Ryan, which is going to severely hurt this team. Bobby has not really been what he's been advertised to be in the past. You know what I'm saying? He really, really hasn't. He really, really hasn't helped this team out as much as he should be. He hasn't been the scoring threat that he should be. Clark MacArthur, who's on IR at 4.6. Derek Brassard's making $5 million. Mike Hoffman's making 5.1, which is a good contract. $6 million for Matt Duchene, and they got a couple of 3s and 2s and 1s. The Dion Phaneuf contract hurts them dearly. I wonder how much Pierre Dorian offered up Dion Phaneuf to the Colorado Avalanche, because that contract's going to be a hard contract for anybody to swallow. I mean, seriously. I think you literally have to find a team like Arizona or Colorado who's at the bottom of the basement and trade him off and still retain quite a bit of salary. Because, Arizona would love to have the cap space taken up on their sheet, but they just don't want to actually physically pay that money out, which they'll have to do. There is no deal in the CBA that says, you can take on a player's salary cap hit, but not have to actually pay them. You can't have a former team pay them. It doesn't work like that. Carlson at 6'5", and he can definitely, again, they were talking about, PK Subban numbers up around $9-10 million. So he could be looking for that. Imagine $17 million, $16 million wrapped up in 2 defensemen, and one of them's Dion Phaneuf. I mean, I like Dion as a player, but he's seen his days pass him, Ship him off to the KHL. I don't think the Senators are going to do that. If anywhere, he'll probably go back to Sweden to play, but he'll find a home in the National Hockey League. Are you kidding me? There's 30 teams that are mouths are watering right now for Erik Karlsson. So you have some contract issues. 1, 2. You have this little bit of a tense meeting between the two sides. And again, that can cool off. But 3, and the main factor for me is the Ottawa Senators asked for his list. That, my friends, is the difference. The Ottawa Senators asked for his list. You don't do that unless you're making some phone calls. You just don't. You just flat out don't. You can't just go around to the league. You can't just, send a text to the other general managers and say, hey, what would you do for, what would you give me for Erik Karlsson? You just can't do that. Because then you're going to have 20 teams that are upset that they didn't make his list, or 10 teams, I should say. So you got to find out what you're working with first. So to ask for the no trade list is a big deal. And it doesn't guarantee that he's going to be traded. It doesn't. But to me, it guarantees that Pierre Dorian is going to pick up the phone and start making some phone calls. Now, I think what's important is, what does Ottawa have coming down the old pike there? Because Johnny Oduya at 36, I don't know if he's sticking around much longer. The rest of their defensive core is fairly young, in their 20s, outside of Dion, who's 32. He's not too old. But there's Ben Harper's, Chris Weidman. Is he going to stick around? Frederick Claesson, does he have it? Do they have the youth in the minors system? That's all up to Pierre Dorian to decide. But honestly, Carlson said some things. There were tense meetings. They asked for the no trade list. I mean, this is not a formality. Don't buy that. Oh, it was just in my contract. I have to submit the list. Garbage. Because I think it's garbage. I think it's garbage. I really do. Because the Senators aren't commenting on it. By the way, like if it was just like a formality, then Pierre Dorion would be out there saying, this is insanity. We have, he has to submit a list by this and this date. So, that's what we did. We asked him for, again, but there are plenty of people in his agency that would know that and would have that list ready to go and would submit it. But the Senators came and asked for it. By the way, you also do get an added bonus out of trading him this season, like we saw with Matt Duchene, the big haul that Joe is able to get for Matt Duchene because he's under contract for another year. This isn't a playoff rental, and then you lose in the free agency. If you want to go out and acquire an Erik Karlsson, you can, and you can have him for an entire other season if you so choose. That's a big deal. That drives up the value. So here's the thing, and this is why I get a little crazy and we're like, they're not going to trade him. There's no way they would trade him. Guys, Wayne Gretzky got traded. Okay, Erik Karlsson can be traded. It's insane to think, but the best player in the game ever at all times, maybe not in the peak of his career, but he wasn't that far off it, and he was still pretty damn good after he was, got traded. So Erik Karlsson can be traded. And for anybody to look at this and go, no, it's just insane, you're looking at it with blinders on and you're not paying attention. They asked for his trade list. They had a tense meeting. They got angry. You know what I'm saying? And now you're looking at it. There's a year left. There's this and that. Now would be the time to move. Wayne who? Yeah, who was that? By the way, does it bother anybody else that Sergachev wears 98 for the Tampa Bay Lightning? That kind of drives me crazy. Like, nobody's ever going to wear 99 again. But the fact that Sergachev wears 98 just bugs me. I just hate that number. You know what that number reminds me of? And I don't know if you guys are video game guys out there and gals, but you remember when you used to, play NHL, 94 or NHL 98 or whatever it was, and you'd trade for Gretzky or you'd trade for so-and-so, or you created yourself in the game and gave yourself 99 and then you'd get traded or get, Gretzky, vice versa, and then your number would be 98. That always reminds me of that, or you wore 97 and you'd go and acquire Roenick and now you're 98. That always drives me crazy. Like, who picks 98? Like, it's just horrible. Is that Sergachev is proud of 98? It's his IQ. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe he's sporting that 98 IQ, all proud of it. Like, let me go ahead and stick this on the back of my jersey. I don't know. 97 to me feels like a little bit more of a number. Maybe it was because Roenick wore it before. I don't know. But to me, 98 is such like an odd, but 89 works for me. Like, I'm totally comfortable with 89. 98 is like an uncomfortable number for me. 98 is a really uncomfortable number for me. By the way, also is 65. I can't stand Karlsson's number 2 at 65. That drives me nuts. To me, it's just not a hockey number. I hate it. I hate it. Vasilevsky wearing 88 in net is growing on me. I don't love it. I'm a traditional. Give me 30 through 39 or 1. I let Fleury go for years with 29. I let him get away with it. That's my fault. I didn't bring it up sooner. But give me 30 through 39. That's it. That's the way to go. Now, I'm not as hardcore as Lou Lamoriello was with the Devils. He would only let players wear up to 25. He had to actually make an exception for Jágr when Jágr came and let him wear 68. But I do. Some of these numbers drive me crazy. I've never been a fan of 45. Not a fan of it. Really not. 68 is okay. Like 64. Like, these are weird numbers. These aren't hockey numbers. 97 is more of a rock radio station number, so that's okay. Exactly. You want to be cool in 97. That's not a bad thing to be. I just don't get it. I really don't get it. Drives me crazy. 98. Every time I look at it, I just get uncomfortable. I don't like it. He's having a heck of a year, though. It's good for Sergachev. I mean, he's killing it. But I'm just saying that number. We got to get him a bet. Like, that's the number you give somebody in training camp. Like, that's a preseason baseball number. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the number you like when they hand you the 98 in preseason in down in Florida. You're like, oh my God, I'm not making this team. You just know the deal. Some of these players are wearing these crazy numbers with pride. So who is Erik Karlsson going to? There's a couple of teams. He's going to go to. We don't know who's on that list. If I had to, I can speculate. I can figure it out. It'll be interesting to see who is on that list. Like, it would be funny to me if Carlson put, Arizona on that list. Like, you can really fine tune this list. Like, if you're Erik Karlsson and you're smart, take a look at the first 7 teams on this list who are all smack up against the cap. If you put the Blackhawks, the Leafs, Detroit, Minnesota, and all these teams that can't afford him anyway, that would be kind of hilarious. Like, if you're Erik Karlsson, you can take this no trade list and you can really expand on it. You can really expand on it. You can fine tune this thing to make sure that you're, by the way, it's a no trade list, so he can't go to the team. So he wouldn't submit like Toronto, but he would keep Toronto off that list so that you could actually, instead of just getting 10 teams you can't be traded to, increase it to that much more. Like, for instance, I said it wrong. You wouldn't put Toronto on the list, but you wouldn't put him on the list for a reason, because you can't trade him there anyway, because you can't fit into the cap. So this 10 team list can actually be a lot more. Let's go over to the teams that have. Let's go by the projected cap space. I guess we should, right? Not the current cap space, because some injuries could be messing that up. So the projected cap space. You really start down here in not a great situation. I'm telling you, you guys are not going to like my answer. You guys are not going to like my answers on this one. Let's start around down here, right? Let's start up here with the Los Angeles Kings. Let's give the Los Angeles Kings some credit with $3.6 million on the cap. Let's say that's where they're at. Let's say they could even make some moves to adjust things to fit in Karlsson's $6 million for the next couple of seasons. You wouldn't send him to the LA Kings because you have Drew Doughty. Same situation. So, and by the way, nobody would double down on defensemen like that. San Jose, to me, makes a lot of sense. To me, San Jose makes a lot of sense. Not all that great standings-wise right now, but they've risen back up, though, I believe, right? San Jose has come back up in the standings. Yeah, they're third in the Pacific. San Jose makes a lot of sense. You guys keep track of this. I can't write this down right now. San Jose makes a lot of sense. The Sabres can obviously take him. And that's pretty funny. Send Carlson to the Buffalo and bring Jim Schoenfeld out of retirement. The Sabres, but again, I don't know necessarily if that would be where Carlson would want to go. To me, the Sabres would be high up on that no trade list. Like, if I'm Erik Karlsson's people, I'm like, put the Sabres down, number 1A. Put the Sabres down as number 1 and number 2. I want you to put Buffalo twice. Put Buffalo down for 1 and 2. Put Buffalo down from 1 through 4, because there's no damn way I'm going there. I want to make sure absolutely it's not going to happen. Not the Buffalo Sabres, not ever. I don't think he would ever want to go there. Columbus seems like a good fit to me. Columbus would be nice. Columbus could use, if Columbus were able to get an Erik Karlsson, that would be a massive windfall for the Columbus Blue Jackets. It would certainly help them when it came time to play Pittsburgh in the Eastern Conference Finals, because I feel like that's where we're headed. Seth Jones is a monster. Jack Johnson is so solid. Savard and Murray, as capable as middle defensemen can be, those 3-4 defensemen. And they got Werenski, who's on a entry-level deal, who's had a great year, and Carlson's doing all right. They don't need it, but they certainly could afford it, and they can afford to give up some assets. They got a great offense. By the way, it's interesting that Cam Atkinson signed that huge deal, and then was a healthy scratch the other night. I don't know if you guys saw that, but it's kind of crazy. Not often do you see somebody go ahead and sign a really like a $5 million deal, and then I think he scored the night he signed the deal and then went on such a cold streak that he wound up being a healthy scratch. That's pretty interesting. So, I mean, again, and he's got a no trade, so that would be a thing. But again, you know, I'm not saying you trade Cam Atkinson. Even if you keep Cam Atkinson, you take a look around at some of their other players. You know, Josh Anderson was a holdout, all that kind of stuff. You can move a younger asset over forwards wise to get into Ottawa here. So I would say Columbus would be a good fit. So San Jose and Columbus, I'd say if you're a fan of those teams, you got a chance. You got a chance of making it happen. I don't know if, you know, he's necessarily against either of those teams. The Panthers are not winning and not winning anytime soon. I think Carlson would be magnificent down there. I think he would be really good with the Florida Panthers. I just don't know if he would, you know, perennially, you're going to put all the losers down low on this list who have salary cap space that you don't want to go. The Edmonton Oilers, I think, would honestly sell off children. They would just sell off wives, husband, children, like whatever they needed to get him. I think that Edmonton would love to get him. I think that Edmonton would not be on his no trade list because he can stay in Canada. Not like that really means all that much to him. The guy's Swedish. It's not like he's Canadian born. But I do think that, and again, but Ottawa and Winnipeg. I mean, it's, you know, it's the difference between New York and Texas. You know, there's big differences there. But he'd be playing with Connor McDavid, and how could you ignore that? Now, Edmonton does have a whole bunch of space this season, but they'd have to fit that $6 million in with McDavid's raise that's coming, so that'd be a really, really tight fit. But a puck-moving defenseman like Erik Karlsson, could you imagine? Forget thinking about that starting lineup with 97 standing in front of 65 to take the face-off. I'm looking at what that 3-on-3 overtime unit would be between Connor McDavid and Erik Karlsson. Could you imagine the two of them playing together 3-on-3 in the overtime? I mean, you could almost guarantee. You know how coaches play for the extra point now? You know, if they're tied, 3 minutes left in the game, they tell their guys, don't take any chances. Keep everybody in front of you. Let's get a point, and then we'll see if we can play for the extra point. I think you would have opposing coaches playing to win because the odds of winning against Carlson, McDavid, you know, it would be insanity. It would be Paul Coffey and Gretzky. Yes, it would be Paul Coffey and Gretzky playing together 3-on-3. I mean, it's just insane. It's just insane what that would be like. And I think, and I don't know if Carlson's thinking is this, but I think that you add Erik Karlsson to the Edmonton Oilers and he immediately fixes all your problems, even though a lot of your problems are the facts that your forwards stink. Okay? He would immediately fix that issue because just having him on the ice just will open up a lot more lanes for the forwards. It really, really would. Make your power play a whole hell of a lot better. It would remake your franchise. The Canadians, obviously, again, but I don't know if Ottawa would make a deal with the Canadians. And by the way, the Canadians have nothing to offer. Where I think he really would go, and this might drive you crazy, but I think it's true, and I know we got some Devils fans out there. I think he would fit in damn fine with the New Jersey Devils. I really, really do. I think he would fit in. Devils have the cap space. They're winning. They're doing really good. Their forwards are young and outstanding. Taylor Hall, Nico Hischier. You run down the list of young guys that are playing really well down there. They have outstanding goaltending. And Corey Schneider. Again, major market, not major spotlight. So he'd still have opportunities to go out on the town in Manhattan, but not, you know, to be there as much as he wanted. To me, the New Jersey Devils make the absolute most sense in this scenario. The Devils make the most sense. Another one I think kind of makes sense is the Vegas Golden Knights. I don't think they need him. They have like 19 other defensemen, but I think it makes sense. But I honestly think that if you're Erik Karlsson on your no trade list, you know, you're going to put teams like the Sabres, you're going to put the Panthers down there. You know, I don't know how he feels about Winnipeg and all that stuff, but to me, I would make it so. I would do it so again, and you're not going to get traded to the Islanders. You're not going to get traded to, you know, none of that stuff is going to happen. So you don't put those teams on your 10-team no trade. So you got to figure out the other teams to really find. You could really file down that list to 4 or 5 teams that Ottawa would have a real shot at trading him to, based on cap space and his list, and what other teams are willing to give up, or if they, again, because you're not going to go to the Kings. The Kings have Doughty. That does nothing for them. The New Jersey Devils make a whole hell of a lot of sense to me. A whole hell of a lot of sense. I mean, if I'm over there in New Jersey right now, I'm picking up the phone, calling up here, Dorian, and be like, what up, dog? Holla at me. Holla back, youngin'. What year is this? That's what I would do. That's what I would do. The Devils just have a ton of space. They just got Sammy Vatanen. Andy Green is great, but he's 35. Damon Severson, great. Ben Lovejoy, again, one of the 4-5 defensemen, really good at where he is. You know, they just lost Marco Mueller for a long time. I forget how long it is, but even he's on an 800. Could you imagine moving forward with Sammy Vatanen, Marco Mueller, Damon Severson, and Erik Karlsson? Damn, that's good. That tastes that's delicious is what that is. That is super delicious. Save 30% on the shop.nhl.com by clicking the links in the Facebook and YouTube descriptions. Get yourself something for Christmas. Even if your wife, husband, cousin, brother, sister is not going to get it for you, get yourself something nice. By the way, I don't do it so much anymore, but there were plenty of Christmases where I bought something for me. Have you guys done that? I would always make sure to get me something good. I mean, I was out there making things happen for other people, but I wasn't going to pass up on a good TV deal or, you know, an awesome camera deal or something like that. I go out there and make sure I pick up something for your old pal Aunt. So guess treat yourself to something this holiday season. Saving 30% too on the NHL official shop. Not a bad way to go. Click on the links in the descriptions on Facebook and YouTube. And again, if you're listening through podcast, you can grab that at hockeytalkshow.com. Any of the shop NHL links, despite what they say, will get you on over to the 30% off. So you can save on your favorite team's gear. If you're the New Jersey Devils, I would say go ahead and buy that Devils jersey and have them put 65 Carlson on the back for you. It's a done deal. It is a done deal. Eddie's still loving that CCM composite stick. You know, it's funny. I was at Dick's Sporting Goods. And I was buying a Christmas present for somebody that I know. And, you know, I went looking for my little guy because, you know, he's only 2. You know, and he's got the rubber sticks. There's a lot of cushioning on that. That's pretty important. And I noticed that they have composite sticks that are like this big. I mean, they make one-piece sticks now for like little kids. And I asked the guy who worked there, I'm like, is this for like, because I know there's like a knee hockey game where you're on your knee and you get the little thing and you can, you know, just shoot and play around in the living room, play a little knee hockey, you know. I'm like, is this like a knee, like, do you need a composite? Like, do you need to put an extra 10 miles per hour on your knee hockey slap shot? I don't know if that's necessary. And he's like, no, it's for kids, man. I'm like, you're starting kids off with these composite sticks? He's like, yeah. I almost kind of thought about buying it and incorporating it in the set somewhere to put like a little stick, like maybe in the front. I don't know. It was like only $20. I really was thinking about getting it in there. I was, I don't know. We still might get it. Justin, I'm really starting to dig this show. Thanks, man. I appreciate the comments. We're doing it, man. I'm digging the community that's building up here between Facebook and YouTube and all that stuff. It's been a lot of fun. We haven't been all that active on Twitter, but our Instagram is pretty active. So if you guys dig on the show, make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram as well. We're at Hockey Talk Show. You can see it on the screen right there, at Hockey Talk Show on all our social media accounts. Winter Classic, and then we're going to wrap it up for the night because it's 7:05 and pucks are about to drop everywhere. Let's talk about the Winter Classic quickly. I am super excited about the announcement that we received from the National Hockey League earlier today. I am thrilled. This is the best news we've gotten so far this season. The Winter Classic, which is going to be taking place here at Citi Field. I say here because we're a few miles away from where Citi Field is. That's where the show originates from. The 4-episode documentary series Road to the NHL Winter Classic will be coming back, presented by Honda. First of 4 episodes returns on December 13th. There's one bad part about this, but there's one really good part. If you haven't watched this show before and you're a hockey fan, let me explain something to you. Watch this show. It's phenomenal. By the way, and this is for the fellas. This is strictly for the fellas. And maybe, you know what? Nah, I shouldn't even say that. Maybe this is for the ladies. But if your wife or your husband or your boyfriend or girlfriend is not into hockey, this might be the way to get them into hockey. Now, my wife's a hockey fan, loves hockey. Doesn't love it as much as I do. If she does, she would have started the show before I did. But even still, like, watches all the games with me, all that stuff. And again, she's got the kids, she's running around and all that stuff. She's doing things, but watches all the games with me. She's into it. She loves the game, loves going to games. But she will sit there during this show and just laser eyes on it. She loves seeing the hockey players with their families in their own elements. This docuseries is so good. Now, it originated on HBO, and when it was on HBO, it was phenomenal. I mean, it was really, really well done. Then they went over to Epix. Now, Epix is a channel that is before its time. It's like HBO. It's like an HBO/Netflix. They weren't on any cable systems. Then they were on a couple of cable systems. They were mostly an online channel. I think they were just a little bit before their time. And the NHL went over to Epix, and they did a couple seasons over at Epix. But the problem is nobody really saw it. I mean, it's Epix. I wish it would return back to HBO, because HBO knew how to produce this show. I mean, they really got in there. Similarly to the way that they do Hard Knocks, the training camp show, which, again, I love football. I'm a Giants fan. I love that show more than like the Giants at this point. It's hard to watch. I still check in on every game, but I'd be lying to you if I said I watched every game from start to finish. But I'll watch that Hard Knocks. Like, I'll watch Hard Knocks Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, who cares about the Jacksonville Jaguars? But I do love seeing that behind the scenes aspect of it. This is so good. This is so good. And it has been great in the past. And there have been some trades in the past that'll happen. Contract signings, all these kinds of interesting stuff. It's always good. You get to see behind the scenes. It's so wonderful. It's not as great as when HBO did it, but I have hope. So here's the good thing. It's not on Epix anymore. They moved it. They took it off of Epix. It is going to now originate on the NBC Sports Network. So great for everybody. A lot of people have that. It's part of the basic package. That's where the National Hockey League holds their, broadcast national rights for in the States. Up in Canada, it's Sportsnet. Down here in the States, it's NBC. So that's awesome. The downside is, and it's smart from a programming standpoint, but not so much. It's going to be following games. Now, I know what the league is thinking. A lot of people tune into the games. They'll stay for the Road to the Winter Classic. But when most of these games wrap up, it's 11:30 at night. And then you're worried about overtime, so you're never going to start at a fixed time. And what does that screw up? The old DVR, which is where most people watch this. Now, if you go to set your DVR, you're going to probably have to record the game and then this to try and get to piece it all together. Because DVRs go by time, not programs. If this starts late, you're up the creek. Or you got to do the thing where you record it and then you put in that extra extension just in case the game goes over a little bit. And either way, most of the time, it's 11:30 at night. So it'll premiere Wednesday, December 13th at 11:30, following the Bruins-Red Wings game. And then the following Wednesday, the 20th, Red Wings-Flyers. Following Wednesday, Rangers-Caps, which will be cool to see because the Rangers are in the Classic. And then the following Sunday, January 7th, following the Bruins and Pittsburgh Penguins, episode 4 is usually the game itself. The good news is and this was a pretty genius move on their part, it'll be backed up, if you will, on NHL Network. So when it premieres on Wednesday the 13th, it'll also premiere Sunday the 17th, 10 o'clock on NHL Network, and then Sunday the 24th, Christmas Eve, and then New Year's Eve, and then on Monday, January 8th. So if you're a DVR person, probably a better time to get it there. I would guess it's going to replay on NBC, NBC Sportsnet, but I can't guarantee that just yet. But either way, at least it's accessible to everybody. So the live may not be that easy for you guys to check out, but at least it's accessible that way. I will tell you this, if you're a fan of the Hockey Talk Show, A, thanks. B, we will be talking about this show on this show. We will definitely be talking about the Road to the Winter Classic on this show. I mean, I do really enjoy watching the Road to the Winter Classic. I do enjoy getting that, getting my Road to the Winter Classic on. It's really good. Oh, and by the way, let me show you this little clip here too while we're at it. The Rangers, remember we talked about the Rangers taking the subway to go practice that one day? They switched their jerseys. They also had, there you can see the big NY. You see it right there in their practice gear. Look at Lundqvist coming in, you know, looking pretty damn good with that big NY on the practice jersey. So remember we were talking about, I praised the Rangers practice jerseys for what they were. And, told you how much I liked them. I thought that big shield would have been the way to go. They didn't go in that direction, but they did for the practice jersey. So as soon as that practice jersey goes on sale, we'll be sure to get that over to you guys. We'll be sure to get links over to you guys on that one because the practice jersey looks sweet. It's kind of genius. Put the big NY shield on the practice jersey, get the formal, Rangers on the front of the actual classic jersey. It's a good move by Adidas and the National Hockey League on that one. I'll grab up one question here before we go. Why couldn't the Islanders be in on Carlson? I'll tell you what, it would be a lethal combination having 2 and 65 together. Nick Leddy and Erik Karlsson together would be just insane. I worry about the Tavares contract and the Bailey contract with Carlson. That's why. Putting $6 million onto this roster would essentially put them -$5 million or so. They have about $1 million or $2 million worth of space. Kuhlman's $4 million comes off, which gives them help, but I thought that they would really use a lot of that chunk to get Tavares up into the $9 and $10 million. Again, without Ed and Carlson, I don't know how they're going to sign Tavares and Bailey. Brock Nelson is a restricted free agent, so they got to give him a little bit more, not too much more. I hope he doesn't get into a holdout situation. He might have the feeling to do so. He's been having a good year. The only good thing about Brock Nelson being able to maybe keep him down a little bit is Anders Lee is having an even better season than he is. But Anders Lee's making more money than he is at almost 3.8. So that'll be something to consider. Carlson would be a smart short-term rental situation for the Islanders. Like Duchesne, like Patrick Marleau was over in Toronto. Sure, give him 2 years. He's only going to be good for 1, but give him 2 because we have 2 years before we have to sign Austin Matthews and all these other guys. So it was an easy fit for Toronto to give Patrick Marleau the extra year he wanted when nobody else wanted to give that to Patrick Marleau. I don't know if the Islanders are in the same situation because they do have to sign Tavares at the end of this year. So it's intriguing to me, but I just don't know how they can do that. By the way, and you take a look at their defense, they also have to give some money to Calvin DeHaan because he's a free agent. Now, they could let Calvin walk, but now that Seidenberg, that's going to walk at the end of this year. He's 36. I don't think Dennis is coming back after this season. DeHaan, that leaves you with Hickey, who's a free agent, and the core, which I do believe Ryan Pulock is in now. Adam Pelech is in the core. Leddy and Boychuk. You do have Mayfield, so you wouldn't be in a scenario where one of those guys is sitting. All those guys would be. It's not impossible. Yarrow Halak will be going to free agency. But the interesting thing with the Islanders is, I don't know if you guys have noticed this over the last couple of games, Yarrow has played more than Greiss, which is a direct contradiction to where the Islanders were last season under Jack Capuano. Greiss pulled out more games than Halak. And I thought Halak has been good, not good enough to outright win the job. But it seems to me like Doug Weight is going to go strong with Yarrow for the rest of them until it seems like it's Yarrow's net to lose, essentially. I think he's going to get all the bigger games, and he's going to get the first game in the back-to-back scenarios. I don't know. And I don't know if Greiss really lost the net. I don't know. I honestly, to me, they're still close. I don't know why, but it seems to me like Doug Weight feels that he's got to lean on Greiss, lean on Halak to go, and we'll wait and see. So if Halak has a really good year and takes the Islanders far, he's making 4.5. He may be looking for a little bit more to stick with them next year. So I think it's their future contracts that are the issue. If Carlson is a restricted free agent at the end of this year, then I could honestly see the Islanders making a pitch for him. By the way, Michael Dal Cole, to me, is like the perfect trading piece. He has not been able to crack this lineup. He hasn't developed as fast as the Islanders have wanted him to. I'm not saying throw him out, but I'm saying Barzal, Beauvillier, and Ho-Sang are clearly ahead of him here, already being up. Like, I mean, they have, like, the Islanders have their core forwards now. Ladd and Eberle and all these guys. Dal Cole's not going to come in and replace a Chimera. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he could, but I don't think he would. So you have a young talent that's on the rise that hasn't been able to crack the roster for 2 years, that other teams are going to start making phone calls on, you know, and him with your first round picks, it gives you a lot of options if you're the Islanders as a trade chip. And I think that would be the way to go for the Isles. I just don't know if they can do it with another year with the term that Carlson has. I certainly think it would look great. Then, you know, Hickey would not be in the lineup. You would literally have a Boychuk, Leddy, DeHaan, Karlsson, Pelech, Pulak. That's a big top six, man. It's a big top six, and a fast top six, too. But the Islanders believe in Adam Pelech. And by the way, he's been playing really well. The talk about the Islanders' youth and defense, not a lot on Scott Mayfield, other than the fact that he cut his hair in the offseason. They make a big deal out of that. Everybody talks about Ryan Pulak and his slap shot, and nobody talks about Adam Pelech. But when you watch, and if you guys are Islander fans out there, watch 50 on the ice for the Islanders. Guy's got some moves, man. Guy is not afraid to hold on to the puck, throw some deeks around, and for his size, he wouldn't look like it. You wouldn't think he has stick handling ability just by looking at his size. But don't judge a book by the cover. He's got some moves. I've been impressed with Adam Pelech lately. Solid in his own defensive end and great to move the puck up the ice. So I don't know if the Islanders really need it. It's insane to me. I never thought I'd get to a point where I would say, I don't know if the Islanders need a Carlson, but I don't know if they do. I think their money is better spent elsewhere. And they are going to have to address goaltending after the season. Because do you stick with Yarrow, who's 32, and what's he going to be looking for in his next contract? Or do you stick with Thomas Greiss? Ballsy of Doug Weight to put Greisser on the bench with 2 more years left at an affordable $3.3 million and go with a free agent. It's a good problem to have if you drive his price up. That means he's playing well enough, but you could be putting yourself in a weird situation come the offseason. I know that Snow and Weight are tight, and Snow has a lot of influence on the team and what happens. Most general managers do. If you've noticed this in sports, by the way, most general managers like running the team through the coach. The days of old, and this is if you're a baseball fan or just a sports fan in general, you want to know why Joe Girardi is out, you know, on the unemployment line? It's because he didn't do everything that Brian Cashman said. That's why. Most of sports now is run through computers and calculators in the front office and trickle down through the manager. There's not a general manager around in any sport that wants to go to his coach and say something and then hear a no. It just doesn't happen. Where in the past, managers put the team together and then the coaches decided who plays and how much. Do you think Carlson is motivated by greed? Again, and because of my background and because I've had the lovely ability of being inside an NHL franchise and had the pleasure of speaking candidly with players in the past, and I say this all the time, and I will always defend hockey players and football players, and Giancarlo Stanton's worth every penny he gets, man. Every damn penny. So are you, Eddie. So are you, Daniel. Joe, so you guys all are. You guys are worth every penny that you get. The difference is we get to work 30 or 40 years, and hockey players and athletes get to work 3 to 10, 15 if they're lucky. So they have to make the money that fuels them for the rest of their lives most of the time in a 10 to 12 year window. And by the way the CBA is worked in the National Hockey League, I don't know if you noticed this, but most of them make under $1 million the first few years. So that makes their window even smaller. You look at all the good young talent across the NHL, they're all making under $1 million. A lot of them are on those entry-level deals that are $700,000, $800,000, $950,000. And I know what you're thinking. That's a lot of money, and it is. But regardless, they have to make that work for the rest of their lives. I know they only work 6, 7, 8 months out of the year, 10 months out of the year, you know, depending on the sport, but still, they're up at the rink at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning for morning skate, player meetings, team lunches. They get a quick nap in the afternoon, and then they're back at the rink by 4 o'clock. And then they're on a plane at 11:30, landing in the next city at 3 o'clock in the morning to get up and do it all over again and be at the rink at 10. So they do give a lot, and they are worth it. I don't know if he's motivated by greed, but imagine if I gave you a choice between 2 jobs, and I told you one job pays you $50,000 a year and the other job pays you $250,000 a year. And by the way, you're only allowed to work for 10 years. Which job would you take? Which job would you take? Think about that question right there. I tell you, you got 10 years left to work. Wherever you are in your lives, you have 10 years left. That's it. After 10 years, something's going to happen. You're not going to be able to work anymore. Here's 2 jobs that are open. One pays $50,000, one pays $250,000 a year. Would you even ask what those jobs were? Would you even ask? Would you even be able to be like, tell me a little bit more about the $50,000 job so I can think? No, you'd be like, give me the $250,000 job. I don't care if it's, you know, cleaning toilets. Give it to me. I'll take it. You take the $250,000. A lot of hockey players think the same way. And again, what we talked about the other day, the difference between franchises now are minimal because every one of them flies private. Every one of them stays in 5-star hotels. Every one of them has first-class practice facilities. Now that the Joe is out and the Coliseum is out, mostly all of them have relatively new arenas. Is there an arena in the league that's left over from the 80s? I'd have to think about it. Most of all of them were born at least in the 90s. And I'd really have to think about this. But anyway, you know, regardless of that, they're all constantly renovated on the inside. Locker rooms are always getting nicer. Calgary, thank you. Yeah, the Calgary. For now. Until it's the Houston Flames. Saddle Dome, more like the Saddle Dome. You know what I'm saying? Because it's sad. Anyway, you got a lot of bonus show right here. You can't blame me for bad jokes in the last 3 minutes. But the point is this, even in Calgary, I bet you that locker room is nice as hell. I bet you there's plush carpeting and great couches and big screen TVs everywhere. You know what I'm saying? So like the players don't care if they're sitting in that. Like that was the thing about the Coliseum. Oh, the arena, nobody likes the arena. The players had great lounges. Now they weren't as great as they are right now, you know, the Barclays Center and so on and so forth. But still, all the teams have put themselves up, whether a team is here or here, and the next team is here, and the other teams, they're all close. They're all relatively close, you know. So it almost doesn't even matter anymore where they play. Like, they're going to live in the nice neighborhood in that city. You know what I'm saying? They're all going to live 4 minutes from each other in the nice neighborhood. Doesn't matter where. You know, maybe a city has more than one nice neighborhood, so there's an option for them. You know, it almost really doesn't even matter where you play because it's going to be nice no matter what. It wasn't like it was years ago. You know, it wasn't like it was years ago before the cap. Before the cap, if you want to get paid, you went to the Rangers. That's why the Rangers amassed all the talent. You know, Rangers were the best team to go to. They had the most money. Toronto had a lot of money, but it was Canadian. The dollar wasn't as strong. So they went, you know, big free agents went to New York. That's why it was easy for them to sign. You know, Rangers are sitting there with a $50 million payroll 20 years ago, and the Islanders are sitting with a $60 million payroll. You know, that's the way it was. When Tampa started, they did not have a great payroll. So, you know, the salary cap has evened it all out. So personally, I think players worry about, is my team good enough? Am I going to win? I think do I like the coach? Is the coach a guy I can get along with? These are the things that they think about. I do think they think about money, but when Carlson comes up for free agency, just like Tavares' situation, just like Drew Doughty's situation, everybody's going to throw a ton of money at him anyway. He knows exactly what he's going to be worth. There's no questions. Whether you get 10 million or 9 million or 11 million, you know, you're only going to be leaving $1 million here or there off the table. To answer your question, like, is he motivated by greed? I think any National Hockey League player would take $1 million or so less when you're talking about the $10 million range. If you're a $3 million player, I don't think you would take $1 million less to go to a team that you really want to play for to make $2 million a year. I don't think you would. But when you're Erik Karlsson, I think it's easy to say, you know what, I'll make $9 million and go here and have a better chance of winning than taking the 10.5 or 11 million there. I think he would do that. But still, it's going to be about money. Is he motivated by greed? No. But if Ottawa turns around and says, Erik, we'd like you to take a hometown discount and make $7.5 million, you'll be the highest paid player on the team, or make $8 million, and another team that's equally as good with a nice area and a great coach and a good chance of winning says, Erik, we'd like to offer you $10 million, I think he would go to the $10 million team. I think he would. I think most of the NHL players would. But I don't think he's necessarily motivated by greed. But again, short window for these athletes to make their money. Really, really short. You know, a lot of them stick around and become coaches and broadcasters and all this. But let's be honest, there's only 30 of those jobs in every team. There's only 30 play-by-play guys in the National Hockey League. 60 if you count radio. All right, 30, 31 and 60, 62. If you count radio. But radio play-by-play guys do not make a lot of money. Believe me, they don't. You know, you talk about coaching. A lot of players after the grind. Again, I referenced this on a past show. I was talking about Derek Jeter. The reason why Derek Jeter wanted to become an owner is because managers have just as crummy hours as players have. Even worse, because they got to do more homework. So maybe you don't want to become an assistant coach somewhere. You know what I'm saying? So maybe they don't have the acumen to become a business person. Maybe they're going to open up a restaurant and break even on money for the next, 20 years of their life. You know, it's a lot to think about. So they got to really sack away that money while they can. So I don't fault players in going out for big $8-10 million contracts. Not whatsoever. And I don't fault a player who leaves a team to make more money somewhere else. I just don't. Because I know what they sacrifice and I know what they put up with. And I know what they face when they leave the game. One of the other topics I'm keeping in the old back pocket here is, in fact, just that. There's a player who did a great piece on what it's like to leave the National Hockey League. And it's not easy financially wise, attention wise, all that kind of stuff. I mean, when some of these guys leave, they are gone and they are forgotten. And it's a really, really horrible thing for some of them to have to deal with. And a lot of them turn to, bad substances, man, whether it's drugs or alcohol or whatever. So, that's something we can, again, it's in the back pocket for a really slow day when we can bring it up and talk about it. get into it. But it's something to think about. It's something to think about. And, you know, forget the Carlsons for now. You know, think about those players that eke through making $1.5 million, $2 million a year for a few years. They got to make that money stretch. They got to make that money go. I mean, it's crazy to think, but if you're a player that makes $1.5 million and you're in and out of the league in 4 years, you probably didn't do as well for yourself as a really good stockbroker who is able to do it for 30 years. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, that stockbroker is going to be living life a lot better than you middle-class hockey player. It seems insane to say that with like the average salaries being like 38 grand or 40 grand in America, at least. But it's true. You know, it's true. Great talk tonight. I can't believe we went to 7:30. This is that's like an hour and 20 minutes or so. But it was fun. Awesome questions as always coming in on YouTube and Facebook tonight. Appreciate it as always. Remember to rate and review on the podcast. And again, you know, we're getting a lot of views all around. Let's jump those Twitter numbers up. Jump in and subscribe and follow us on Twitter at Hockey Talk Show on Twitter. We haven't really been tweeting out a lot. We'll tweet some more fun stuff there. Because I was looking to maybe interact and I didn't want to post stuff on the Facebook page. I want the Facebook page to just be for shows, you know, so maybe we'll do some more tweet. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But we'll pick up the tweeting and we'll definitely pick up the Instagramming too. At Hockey Talk Show, both all the way around. Eddie, appreciate it, man. Appreciate all the comments. Daniel, everybody in the YouTube chat, you guys are awesome. CB, thanks, man. Good stuff all around. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate the growth and you guys sharing this on social media. That's great. Until next time, again, 5 Live all week long. I'll see you guys